Yeah, it started.
Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. I would like to call to order the Municipal Accountability Review Board. This is the Hartford Subcommittee. Today is April the 27th, and the time is 10:16. We had a little bit of technical difficulties this morning, and so we are just getting started. We do have a quorum, and this is being recorded. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of March 23rd, and those minutes are included in your packet today. If I could get a motion for approval.
So moved.
Thank you, Andrea. We appreciate that. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. And any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. And
Aye.
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 Stephen, you're with me? Did I hear Stephen? Yes.
Yep, here I am.
Thank you. I heard Bob. I don't think I heard Mark.
I saw him before I got kicked off.
Yeah, he's here, but I didn't hear his aye. Mark's on mute.
Aye.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. All right, the motion has been approved and the minutes have been approved. The next item on the agenda is a review or discussion of the Moody's ratings. I really just included that for everybody's own purpose, as we all have heard from the Office of Treasury, who has joined us in prior subcommittees, that the Hartford is doing some refunding bonds, and Moody's has provided an assigned AA3 rating for Hartford on these refunding bonds, and this rating is the same as Connecticut's rating, and as there is a contract of assistance that the state will be paying these bonds, so they get the benefit of the state's rating. I can tell you as an update that as of yesterday, bonds were sold at $124 million, and they're working through those final stages. So I heard a lot of good news of rah-rah. I don't know, Andrea, if you have anything else to comment on it. Again, it seems like things are moving forward nicely.
Yes, they are. And indeed, the bond sale did take place yesterday. We're excited to announce that it will save the state taxpayers $13.9 million over the next 10 years.
Fantastic.
So I know that, and I don't want to, I know you want to run through because we're running behind. Can you just real quickly, the Reader's Digest version of how you're doing that in a market that has increase in interest rates? I mean, I know, I mean, I'm sure they're selling, I mean, I don't know what the coupon is. I mean, I would assume there's got to be a premium for these because of the coupon. I don't know. There's something, just the real quick, and if it's not going to be quick, don't even worry about it, because I already thought it was a great idea, because you're saving, you know, 13 million over, you know, all this money over 10 years. So
I know the coupon was 5% that I saw, but on the market, I believe that Connecticut paper is, people were looking that they found that to be advantageous, right? And so there was a savings when we pulled all of that together, the Office of Treasury.
all right, that's fine. I mean, we've already voted it in. I think it's a great idea anytime you save money. So
thank you.
And I trust the math.
And if it's helpful, just for context, the bonds are refinancing 6 series of existing higher interest City of Hartford GO bonds for the debt service savings. That's where the savings come from.
Okay,
That's helpful.
makes sense. Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is a review and discussion and possible action of the mayor's fiscal year 2024 recommended budget. The city has recommended that provided a cover memo that was distributed in the materials. This is a balanced budget, and the total of approximately $619 million, a 19.6 million or a 3.3% increase over 2023 budget. The revenue increase is an increase in taxes of $6 million, and it also includes interest of 6.3 and grants of 5.5 million on the revenue side. On the expense side, you're going to, I believe, learn about increases in the payroll and the benefit lines within 15.7 million, and overall expenses of 3.3 million. This morning, Simon sent out to the members a summary, and he is going to provide you with some quick highlights of the summary that the staff has pulled together of the budget, and then we will then ask the city to then give us an overview. Simon?
Yes. First of all, I have to apologize that I didn't complete that earlier.
That's okay.
Yes. So since most people didn't get a chance to read that, I will share my screen so everybody can see that. Another reason is make my height smaller. So
Simon.
yeah. Okay. So this is the memo. According, I think Kim explained the statute that MARB has to approve those three elements. It is the state revenue, property tax, and mill rate. So first of all, I have the table for the property tax increase. As Kim said, the general fund revenue was increased about 19.6 million compared to 2023 budget. And so for the property tax, FY 2024 budget was 300 million. So 222 million was from the current tax levy, and the others is from the interest, and the prior year tax collection is about 8.6 million. So total is about 5.8 million increase from last year, of 2%, 2% of the total budget. So last subcommittee meeting, we provide 2022 grant list. Let me pull off that grant list. So as you can see that we distributed this last time in March, and because they didn't do a reval this year, so the value increased slightly. Other residents' property value only increased about 0.84% from 23, and let me see. This is oh God, I gotta move that. So yeah, the personal property and motor vehicle increase 8% or 11%. I think because I think everyone knows the reason that all the class value went up last year. So the commercial property value only decreased about 0.09%. So let's go back to the cover memo. So the mill rate, the city didn't budget any changes, so all the mill rates stayed the same as 23. The collection rate, the city budgets only 0.1% increase from 95.78 to 95.79. and we give the history of the collection rate. All those numbers, I'm sorry, I didn't made a mistake here. Should be the first slash should be 2022 for 96.09%. All those numbers are from the audited financial statements. For the state grant revenue, we did compare from the city's budget to governor's budget. You can see everything is in line here, except one item is ECS funding. That's because the aliens grants was directly distributed to the Board of Education, and it didn't go through the city. So I think that's all the summary. So if you have any question, you can ask me or Julian. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. So I think as a quick summary is today we are looking to approve the revenue line items as we have in the past, as Hartford is a tier 3 municipality. So now let's turn this over to Julian to give us a whole overview of all of the assumptions that have been built into the budget and their game plan for the upcoming year. Thank you. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
Mhm.
You want me to go?
Please, it's all over to you.
Thanks, and good morning, everybody. And I do want to pass along for the mayor. He sends his regrets that he could not be here this morning. He did have a schedule conflict, but he sends along his best wishes to everybody. If it's okay with you, I'd like to just walk through, it's a short PowerPoint that was presented at the first public hearing, which was in April. And if I can share my screen, is that okay?
Please. No. Yeah.
There we go. There we go. So just opening briefly with the overriding goals of the FY24 budget. The first is to preserve the property tax reduction that was built into the current year budget. You'll recall that last year the mill rate was reduced from 74.29 mils to 68.95 mils, and that was largely made possible by the reval and the growth in the grand list from the October 21 grand list. And then the others are themes that you've heard along the way as you've worked with the city of Hartford, protecting the city's fiscal strength and sustainability, maintaining and delivering core services effectively, enhancing services in a responsible way, and building the budget using careful and accurate projections of revenues and expenditures. This particular budget does, again, as I mentioned, it maintains the mill rate at 68.95. There is also an expansion of the elderly tax relief program, which currently provides a maximum benefit of $750. That is elevated in this budget to a cap of $1,000. There are some targeted investments to increase departmental capacity, and that's largely in staffing. It funds a number of contractual increases. We've seen the labor contracts that have come through over the course of the last 12 to 18 months, and some in the form of MOUs to make the city more competitive in recruitment and retention, maintains the current funding level for the school system, and there is no new borrowing or reliance on any one-time revenues, as has been the case for several years now. This staffing adjustments are Highlighted here on this slide, we have 7 positions here at the top, 3 in housing and 3 in the fire marshal's office to help the city enforce housing code and fire marshal's code. There are also 4 new 911 dispatchers added where there's been a lot of demand on staff to work overtime and keep that operation moving along. 1 supervisor to complement those 4 new dispatchers. There are 15 new staff throughout Public Works across pretty much the whole department, several working for the blight remediation team, and then others again in just about every division within Public Works, restoring positions that had previously been cut from the budget in the years leading up to and the early years of the city under the MARB oversight. There's a significant proposal to expand hours and programming at the city's recreation centers. And so that drives the family, children, youth, and recreation budget to a large degree, and also adding hours and days at the library branches. Here is a very high level overview. Kim already hit these numbers, but it is a 3.3% increase over the current year. We already mentioned that it provides for the wage increases that were approved through contractual agreements, and also provides for that targeted staffing increases that I mentioned a minute or so ago. The addition of hours and programming at the rec centers and the library. And then there's also a little bit of additional funding for equipment, and that would be heavy equipment like Public Works and fire apparatus, and some technology and cybersecurity enhancements. This is an overview of the revenues. We saw that the overall taxes increased by about 2%. Licenses and permits are up. That's largely a reflection of, sort of catching up with our prior year actuals, still reasonably conservative on that count. The next major driver of revenues is in the interest and rental income. So while on the one hand it makes borrowing more of a challenge, it has generated considerable additional income. You've seen that in our monthly reports. Month after month, we've been reporting and projecting interest income that would exceed the budget by larger amounts, and that's driving much of what we're projecting for our current year surplus, and our treasurer's office is projecting that will continue into next year. Intergovernmental, that's the increase in state aid that Simon referred to earlier. The increase in charges for services is almost entirely the town or city clerk's conveyance fee that is levied. And then the increase in other revenue is attributable to a program that the treasurer's office instituted for electronic payments, and there's a rebate component to that that generates about $200,000 of new revenue. And let's consider this one. Here's on an object basis. Here's the overview. The payroll again accounts for the new positions as well as contractual increases. There's somewhat of an increase in the benefits. The benefits covers, all the health benefits, pension requirements, and so forth. So a 3.4% increase there. Debt and other capital, the $1.9 million increase you see there is a increase of the city's pay-as-you-go capital improvement program. So that increases, all of that increase is attributable to the pay-as-you-go program. Library is a reflection of the additional programming I mentioned earlier. Metro Hartford Innovation Services, that's the city's IT operation, and it serves both the Board of Ed and the city. This is the city, the piece that is built into the city side of the budget. The increase there is about half of that dollar increase is attributable to a Microsoft Office upgrade. And then there's also one additional position recommended in that operation, in addition to the routine contractual increases for existing staff. Utilities go up somewhat. This increases in electricity and gas and so forth are offset by a projected actual reduction in what we would be paying to the MDC. And then the other non-personnel is a combination of items that includes the increase I mentioned for heavy equipment. It includes additional funding to support legal expenses. And there's also there's funding in there for renewal and expansion of the city's, the police department's mobile and body camera program and system. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the education funding is held constant. This is the overview on a departmental basis. So I've kind of ticked through these already, alluding to where some of the increases are, what you see in town clerk, some of the larger ones. That one is an additional position for a deputy clerk. There's some shifting around of positions and operations between the chief operating officer office, the finance department, and the Office of Management and Budget. So we have our central duplicating operation moving out of the COO's office into the budget office, and then the risk management function moving out of the budget office into finance. So there's some movement there. Children, family, recreation, that 1.3 million is almost entirely attributable to the proposed expansion of programming at our rec centers. So increasing programming at 3 of the 4 rec centers by about 8 hours a day, and also adding weekend hours. And then there's a 5th recreation center that is currently offline that is undergoing construction or renovation. And then police, that's largely contractual increases that we've seen come through over the course of the last year. The additional positions for the dispatch operation, that's in emergency services and telecommunications. Public Works, a number of new positions that I mentioned there. And development services, where the 3 new housing inspectors are situated. And then the debt service, as I mentioned earlier, that includes our pay-as-you-go capital program. This is a pie chart of what we just looked at. This is citywide, so it includes the education piece, and this is if we broke it down and just looking at city operations on an object basis. One more graph, just breaking out the components of our benefits and insurances, health insurance being the largest component of that, and workers' comp and property and liability. And some additional points. We're, again, not issuing any new debt. We have fully funded the ADEC. We're not relying on rescue plan funding to support the budget. And we're continuing to build our capacity to deliver services. And the mayor also emphasized when he presented the importance of maintaining disciplined budgeting and spending well into the future. And some other highlights here. Our CIP is a $42 million program, and that is funded through a combination of a $12.4 million contribution from the current year general fund, the utilization of some existing capital fund reserves, and also supported by $10 million of the current year projected surplus. So you'll probably remember from prior fiscal years, the mayor has proposed and the city council has adopted resolutions that allocate the first so many $1 million of surplus to capital, the next X number million of dollars to fund balance, and then they may have other designated uses beyond that. And so $10 million of the surplus in the current year would be allocated to capital. You'll recall the last monthly report that we provided to the MARB was projecting a little over $10 million of surplus. And as we move along to the remaining months of the year, we're anticipating that that number will go up considerably as we see the property taxes coming in, as we recognize more of the attrition savings in the budget and so forth. And then that's that. That's it for the PowerPoint. And then I was going to walk through the, I had some other exhibits that we're going to touch on the elements that the MARB approves, but Simon already did that. So I can hit them if you would like, or we can proceed as you wish.
Does anybody would like Julian to go through those other exhibits one more time? Yes or no? You're going, okay, okay. Mr. White?
No, I'm fine. You don't have to go
Okay.
through the exhibits. Just a question on the kind of grand list. Do you expect any, I know the reval isn't for a while, but do you expect any sort of additional delinquencies because of office vacancies and things like that?
Honestly, I don't, I can't offer any insight on anticipated delinquencies. We do build into our, we build into the property tax calculation some set-asides for Board of Assessment challenges and court challenges.
Right.
But I would have to check in with the assessor to see if he had any insight on delinquencies or a significant
I
change
saw
in
the
that.
collection rate went up a hair, and just was wondering if, how bad the distress is within the office market. I haven't heard of any buildings closing, but okay, that's fine.
Julian, when you built in to add the additional positions, was there any, I think I heard some repurposing, or was it just shifting positions from one department to another department?
So the new positions that I described in terms of the, housing and safety and in public works, those are new. Then the shifting really occurred within those three departments that I mentioned: Chief Operating Officer, Finance, and Budget Office. That those were really just moving divisions. So
Okay.
the gentlemen who work in central duplicating are now part of this office, and the risk management function was moved to Finance. But there's no sort of new or repurposed position there.
Okay.
I take that back. There was one.
Okay.
There was a deputy budget director position is one moved over to Finance along with the risk manager, and that the dollars associated with the deputy budget director are being repurposed to an additional risk management position.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, Mark, I see your hand is up, please. The floor is yours.
Julian, what you term attrition, I term vacancies. Those are somewhat synonymous, I assume. My assumption is that annually, even though historically there has been, I don't want to say never, but close to never, a full complement of budgeted positions on the city side. Oh, set aside the board side, that's a separate issue. So one could assume if that trend were to continue, that there would likely be a surplus, if you will, on the payroll side because of those consistent vacancies that you are unable to hire for, whether it be police, fire, et cetera. Is there any way of gauging, I mean, I'm sure you have historical data, but is there a way to at least provide some background to us, what the likelihood is, projecting what your vacancies or attrition rate would be through this budget? So correct me if I'm wrong. So what you have is a fully budgeted, a fully complemented budgeting for personnel with a history, which is not unusual, of vacancies throughout the whole year. May not be the same vacancy, but vacancies, which cause surpluses in the payroll accounts across the board, but also drives the overtime expenditures to compensate. So it's a floating number where one goes up, the other one goes down. So I guess my question is, can one project historically what one might see as a continuing number of vacancies? As a matter of fact, I thought I saw that in your 5-year plan, someone about adjusting those vacancies to accommodate for projected deficits over the 5 years. So I don't want to call it a slush fund, but it's a budget. You know, when you budget fully, and we know, like every other city in town, more than likely, we don't have the personnel to fill those vacancies, we're going to see a surplus in that account. So I guess the question is, historically, do you accommodate for that in your mind more than anything else?
Yes. So in the budget, so when we're developing a budget for the next fiscal year, we do include some attrition, but it is still a very conservative budget in that we anticipate that attrition or vacancies will run higher than what we're carrying. And that has been a major driver of the city building up its fund balance over the last several years. It's budgeting conservatively on the salaries and letting the savings roll into fund balance at year end. In projecting further out, we do know, and took this into consideration in our 5-year plan this year. We know that historically our vacancies and turnover tend to generate more surplus or savings by year end. And so for 5-year or multi-year planning purposes, we have taken the historical averages into account. But when building an actual budget that we're then, is an appropriated budget, it has, we're constrained by it for the next fiscal year, we take a more conservative approach on that 1-year outlook. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. My concern obviously is that you not be creating such a surplus that it allows for, and I know this has been done in the past, it allows for the movement of money during the year because you know you have it someplace because you in effect over budgeted for it. But I think that Hartford is trying to gather or gain a handle on its trending, so that even though we know it's going to be there, it's not going to be misused. And I found a lot of towns that misuse that line item, and I'll use the term slush fund, knowing that it's over budgeted to move money around during the year, which is in my mind somewhat of a improper budgeting, but it does not appear to be that way for Hartford. It appears to be very conservative and recognizing there's historical data, but it's not planned for use in areas that are under budgeted. If you know what I mean. I mean, some other towns have under budgeted, knowingly under budgeted, knowing that they're going to rob from Peter to pay Paul from the beginning. And in your case, over the years that I've been involved, we seem to have eliminated that practice, which is good. I mean, I think that's the best practice, knowing that we're going to have vacancies, but not budgeting in such a way to under budget A to cover it with B. So I appreciate that. Now all we have to do is get another budget to do the same thing, and I think we might be okay.
Thank you, Mark. No, I would agree, and understand that. I think you're saying conservative, but Julian, I'm glad that you have taken a look at this in the going in the out years and comparing it to the actual trends. As I had always thought that the attrition and vacancy savings was on the ultra conservative side when it came to budgeting, knowing that they did need a surplus, but also knowing that you do when the surplus is achieved, that there are specific initiatives that need to be covered because you can't take on more debt, and so that one-time money can be shifted over to cover those capital items that need attention that you're not able to then build in a proper capital budget for. Any other questions? Julian, great job with all of this, and shifting over rather quickly to your new position in maintaining the nice high level of expertise and documents that you provide us, because Hartford has always done a great job with their budget package, and I really think you ought to be proud of that work that got completed in a very short time for yourself of sitting over there. But let's not kid ourselves. You do have some expertise to take that on. We
And
can
a
move
solid
on.
team here to
Fantastic.
Yeah, really,
Fantastic.
really good team.
Fantastic. Good. That's great for you. Let's move on then to the next agenda item, which is just really continuing with the budget, and let's hear about your 5-year plan. Within the 5-year plan, I think that you've also included a mitigation plan, and all of those materials have been distributed for everybody today. I'm not going to hit the highlights. I'm going to ask Julian to walk us through your mitigation, because I don't want to steal your thunder.
I am going to share screen again, if that's okay.
Please do.
And I'm gonna, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna focus on the mitigation plan, because as you indicated, our baseline forecast, which is how I look at the forecast that was provided and lists all of the assumptions. Our baseline forecast is very conservative. You use the word ultra conservative. And the practice has been over the last 3 or 4 years that the city would run its baseline forecast, showing budget gaps in the out years that ranged in any given year, and depending on the 5-year plan, those deficits ranged from 5 million to 30 million, and then would accompany that baseline forecast with a series of mitigation measures. And so I was going to focus on that aspect of it, given that we know the core forecast is built on very conservative assumptions, such as 1.5% increases in the grand list, fully staffing fully staffed, as Mr. Waxenberg mentioned. So I'm just trying to find now the right. I have too many things open. I apologize, but eventually I'll find the right document too. share.
Julian, does it highlight as well as just the mitigation members, but it does it highlight the out years of the holes that have to get filled?
Yes, I
Okay.
believe it does. You'll be the
Okay.
judge of that. So this, can everybody see this document?
Yes.
It is the document that was included, so I'm just going to walk through it and some of the thinking behind it. This is so this summary level table at the top is basically the high level results of that baseline forecast. And you'll see, obviously, FY24 is balanced. We begin to see deficits in year 2 for FY25 and then increasing as we go out. That's largely a function of, like I mentioned, the tax base growing at just 1.5% per year, no increases in virtually any other revenue source, and almost, for the most part, fully loading our staffing levels and fully loading the cost of personnel into this. And by the way, this also incorporates our long-range forecast for pension ADEC that our actuary Hooker and Holcomb provides. And so one minor change to the format this year is I tried to make a distinction between mitigating factors that will just likely happen as a matter of nature running its course versus mitigation measures, which are deliberate steps the city takes to achieve savings or enhance revenues or otherwise close the gap. And so I'll just click through these so that you know what they are. These are mitigating factors. These are things that we could reasonably assume will happen or are likely to happen over the course of the 5-year plan. In the I didn't walk through it in detail, but as part of our calculation of our property taxes, we make an allowance for revenues that we won't collect as a result of Board of Assessment appeals activity. And so in our base budget, we assumed that we would lose $3 million as a result of the Board of Assessment appeals activity. And between the time we issued the budget and today, the board concluded its work for the year. It only knocked out $1 million of revenue, or the equivalent of $1 million of revenue. And so we know that some of those property owners could still go through the court process, but we thought it was reasonable to assume that we could pick up $1 million of that gain. And so that's built in here. We did not make any allowance for a grand list adjustment resulting from the October 26 revaluation. There's a very modest increase here built in based on an analysis by our assessor. And what he did was he looked at real estate activity since the 21 reval, and the increases that are showing up. And this is market appreciation. This has nothing to do with new construction or anything like that. This is market change since October 21, seeing a significant increase in residential real estate. And then he also factored in a decrease for commercial of 20% and came out with a net of about 1.7%. So the thinking was, well, if we get that growth, if we get that level of market appreciation and nothing else changes until 26, and we layer that onto the 1.5% of actual growth, so growth being new construction or redevelopment or personal property or vehicles, that would give us a 3.24% increase in that reval year. So the differential between the 3.2 and the 1.5 generates, a little over $5 million of revenue there. We have a number of tax abatements that are expiring in the out years. And if you go beyond this forecast period, there are more expiring. But these are the ones that are scheduled to expire within the 5-year forecast. And then there was also an agreement with a development agreement with property owner on Trumbull Street. It's an agreement with a hotel. They also are building apartments. It's a revenue share. And so we've incorporated the projected revenue that we would receive from that agreement into this. This is less than what the original projections were, so we chose to back off of the number that was provided a little bit and pushed it out by a year. So I think the original plan was for the city to begin receiving funds as early as 24. We pushed it out and are showing it in FY 26 beginning. And then the most significant impact here in terms of our mitigating factors is exactly what Mr. Waxenberg raised earlier. Is we know that historically our vacancies and turnover generate more savings than we typically build into the budget, the annual budget. So we did look back. It was at least 5 years. It may have been more than that, but it was at least 5 years at what we historically would leave on the table in terms of salary expense, and built that into our mitigating factors. There's one correction in here where we were using in our baseline forecast, we're assuming an incorrect tip fee for our disposable waste. And then we also know that ultimately some of the legal fees that are associated with the downtown north case will ultimately subside. And so we've projected in a gradual easing of those expenses off of the baseline. So those are the mitigating factors, the things that we expect will happen just as the course of events. And you can see what that does to our deficit in FY25 actually turns into a modest surplus, and the deficits in the out years are cut pretty drastically. Then we looked at our budget mitigation measures and made a distinction here between short-term and long-term. Well, short-term measures are what we've included here are measures that are really ongoing, already in being implemented. And so you see in our monthly mitigation measures report, we report activities by the tax collections office to generate additional revenues, either through collection agencies or personal property audits and steps like that to generate additional income. And then also our revenue collection measures on, special duty, rentals and other collection measures there, using a collection agency and rigorous attention to that has generated some modest revenue, and we expect to improve upon those numbers beginning in FY24 actually, but I put zeros in just because we already have a balanced budget, but going forward, we'll continue to work on that and expect to see those measures to generate some additional income pretty much right away. The long-term measures are measures that are going to require some time to develop plans, evaluate the feasibility of moving forward on them, are going to take time to determine what kinds of savings or revenues they can even generate. And so those are items that I would not anticipate seeing returns on until FY26. And you'll see I have not made an attempt here to quantify how much any one of these individual measures could generate in terms of savings. That's really going to require some time and planning. But we're confident that these numbers, these and others, this is sort of a short list of some ideas that we'd like to begin working on now over the course of the next year and beyond. The measures that appear on this will will likely change. The list will grow. The ones that are determined to not be feasible or that would not generate a return would be removed. But this is a starting list. We've begun planning on energy efficiency projects. We have a number of capital projects in the queue that should ultimately generate operational savings in terms of utility costs and things of that nature. We had a meeting with a consultant last week that will potentially provide us some assistance in acquiring either grants or they're not tax credits. They're what have become or have been created as the government's version of tax credits, or direct credits, through the Inflation Reduction Act to implement renewable energy measures. We had a meeting last week and are gearing up to start developing proposals for those grants and credits. We're going to take another look at our grants that can be used to offset operating costs. So we have a very robust grant operation here. And the city has been, as you've seen in our monthly reports, the city's been very successful in acquiring new grants, many of them offsetting our capital costs by funding capital projects, many of them providing funds to enhance services or provide supplementary services in human services and a range of other areas. The trickier grants are ones that would actually offset operating costs. And so things like hiring grants through the COPS program, which is the community-oriented policing, but that's a hiring program. There's a similar hiring program for firefighters through the SAFER grant. It may take some time to come up with a strategy, but we need to start thinking in those terms with our grant opportunities as well. ALS is advanced life support. It's like paramedic services. Many municipalities actually charge insurance companies for advanced life support that is provided when a medical call is taken. And so we do not have a process or a system in place to do that kind of billing. That may be something that we could institute. That's going to require some time to develop a plan and work with Corporation Counsel and our billing division and the union and so forth. But that's something that we'll be looking at over the next year. Our risk management manager has been very successful at reducing the cost of claims over the last several years. She does have some ideas for continuing to manage and lower costs. I think she's always got ideas, and she's always able to sort of chip away at the margins as well, even with some more modest measures. I think one of them is the PM24. It's the triage call line, where rather than an employee immediately or automatically going to urgent care for a workers' comp call, they can be triaged to one of three levels, which is if they call this line, they can be triaged to either self-care, urgent care, or emergency, and that has shown savings, in the 5-figure savings, tens of thousands of dollars. In terms of moving the needle in a more dramatic, with more dramatic numbers, her next area of exploration is managing the network of service providers within workers' comp. Right now, my understanding is that an injury or a worker can call any service provider without limitation. And so there's a possibility that if we create a workers' compensation network of service providers, that we could manage costs that way. Update local fees and charges. if you look in the detailed revenue schedule of the budget, there are literally dozens of fees and charges that some of which may have not been updated in a long time. So this may be an area where we could, recognize some material revenues. And then our benefits manager has some ideas, which again will take some time to work on and evaluate and implement if they are determined to be worth pursuing. But some measures like a buyout or a limited buyout, in some cases, those would require working with the actuary to run scenarios and numbers and projected impact. But that's another area where there's potentially material savings to be achieved. Again, that's our current short list. More will be added as we have more time to generate ideas. We're fortunate in the sense that we know that through just the mitigating factors that are listed at the top of the page, the city does have some runway here, that we're not, the deficits really don't materialize until the out years, if then even. And so we do have some runway to put some thought into these plans, pick out the ones that are going to, are most likely to generate some returns and be implemented successfully and move forward with them. And then lastly, as a final safety net, we do have budgeted contingency in our budget and our 5-year plan. And the last resort has always been, a reduction in pay-go capital if it were to come to that. But as I said, that's last resort. I'm going to stop sharing. And that concludes my overview of the 5-year plan, the mitigation plan.
Julian, this is very helpful. I think that, again, it's not a surprise. I thought that you would be able to give me some assurance, as I could always see the trend in the numbers. And this is something that you and I worked very closely at when it came to the city of Hartford. And so you being on the other side of the table and providing this document is one critical for me and my own personal, expertise and as a voting member on this board, so that this way in the out years we can have a much better understanding. We always knew it was there. We could always see the trend, but this really paints the picture that you do have levers and triggers that you can pull should you need to, even though your budget is showing, I would call it, as I have, the ultra conservative format, and allowing that city to make sure that you didn't commit yourself, but I was never comfortable with the out years showing those gaps. And so this is very, very helpful, and it's helpful to me. Any comments from the members? No. So while I did skip over the voting part of it for the fiscal year, this fiscal year of FY24, and where we all felt about it, I really wanted to see the closing of the 5-year as well. So to me, I know we boxed them out as 2 separate agenda items, but to me, they go together. And in order to, hear the impact of this year and how it reflects on the out years, I think it's important for us to know. So I didn't see any hands up. If you do have, I'll give you another chance to see if anybody has any other questions for Julian. Okay. Then I just want to bring to everyone's attention that the full MARB has an opportunity to approve or disapprove. This being the subcommittee, we always like to make a recommendation to the full MARB, and that today we're not here to we're really to look at 4 items, and of the revenue generating items. The full MARB has until May 21st to either approve or disapprove. And I am looking for a motion, if so choose, I am in favor. I'm in favor of the budget as well as the 5-year plan that has been presented to us today. And I am looking for a motion for approval of the the mayor's FY24 budget as it stands to the full MARB. If I could get a motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
second.
White. Thank you, Andrea. Any other further discussion? I hear none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Is Mr. Falsigno
Aye.
still with us? Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay,
Aye.
all in favor. Thank you.
Yeah, I was here for the whole thing. Julian, as always, outstanding.
Thank you so much.
The motion carries and the FY24 budget has been approved. I now am looking for a motion on the City of Hartford's 5-year plan for fiscal year 24 through fiscal year 28, and including the nice layout of their mitigation measures. If I could please get, and this is for recommendation to the full MARB, if I could get a motion for approval.
So moved, and I add my congratulations to Julian. That's really, really helpful.
Second.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Mark. Any final discussion? Okay, I hear none. All in favor, please. Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank
I
you
saw
very
your
much.
lips move, but I didn't hear it. Okay, thank
Aye.
you. All right. All right, I did hear that everybody is in favor. The motion carries and your 5-year plan has been approved. Great work, Julian.
Thank you. Thank you all.
The only other item that I have left, we did talk about the mitigation measures, so we walked right through that. That's agenda item number 6, so we are through that item as well. The next item is any related business. I just would give you an update to let you know that the Milliman contract is still working. We're working with the Board of Ed, and Milliman has received the data, and they have begun to do their work. We had a follow-up meeting last Friday for some additional data, but that is underway. That's the only item that I had to bring to everyone's attention. I guess one other item is to make everybody aware that our board meeting has moved. That was scheduled, and it was scheduled for May 11th, and we are moving that to May 18th to allow for a little bit more time and a shift in the schedule. It is very similar schedule to what we did last year. Not until I did a look back when we created the schedule this year did I realize how much shifting that we did based on the timeline of when each town gets approval from their local level. So we've made that shift again. We'll try to do a better job in taking that into consideration next year. Does anybody else have any? Yes.
Yeah, I just have to let you know that I'm going to be, and I'll happily not there because my daughter's graduating from grad school that day, so I won't be around.
All righty. Well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
But the MARB, I think that takes precedent. So
yes. Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Any other discussion? Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Stephen, I will take you. How about a second, Mr. Waxenberg?
Sure.
Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you all. Record time. You just got
Thank
through
you.
a huge mountain and all that work, and 1 hour and 20, well, less than that, maybe
Right.
1 hour. All right, Julian, thank you.
Thank you all.
Budgets are
Have a
us.
good day.
Please. All right.
Bye.
Bye.